Hi, good morning. My name is Patrick Hertzke, and welcome to EcoMotion Week 2021. We're joined today for the Future of Electric Vehicle panel, and we're incredibly excited to be joined by three gentlemen, Orfer, Gary, and Peter. I'll let the three introduce themselves, and then we'll jump in. Orfer?
Hi, I'm Alfredo Leon. I'm CEO of EVR Motors. We're developing a new topology for radial flux motors that lets us make them much smaller, less than half size and much lighter than normal radial flux motors. In my previous position, I was general manager of the space division at Israel Aerospace Industries, in charge of building satellites and getting Beresheet to the moon.
Gary?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Gary West. I work for General Motors Middle East. I'm Managing Director for OnStar Connected Services and Future Mobility. So Future Mobility is connected, autonomous, shared, and electric technologies. Very pleased to be here today.
And Peter?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Stevert. I'm Head of Innovation at CVT, part of Geely. We develop mobility solutions, electrified, for a different tomorrow, and very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'm again, Patrick Hertzke. I'm excited to be your moderator today and to join all of you watching. I help lead our electrified vehicle service line on a global basis at McKinsey & Company. And we've done around 500 projects in that space in the last 5 years. So this is certainly a mega trend that we're experiencing, and we're incredibly excited to be joined by the three of you gentlemen because you really cut across the value chain. We have representation of vehicle makers, suppliers of advanced technology, and then advanced technology integrating those two and thinking about new modular platform design. So this is an incredible cross-section to really talk about the future of electric vehicles and where we're headed. Maybe to kick us off, Gary, I'll punt to you to start this, but as you think about General Motors has made major commitments. 000 is the mantra that you're pushing in terms of zero emission, zero accident, and I'll forget the third here in a moment, but zero congestion. So really thinking about autonomous, thinking about electrified or other forms of zero emission powertrain, and thinking about things that are much safer. But as you think about the trend of electric vehicles, we're kind of in a range where in many markets, we're still small single-digit adoption when we talk about new sales per year. Some markets moving ahead, but many lagging behind. What's your feeling for when we kind of cross the chasm into mass market adoption? And how do you think about that across different markets? Europe, very different than Middle East, for example.
Thanks, Patrick. And that's a great question. You're absolutely right. When you start looking at General Motors' vision, our vision is a bold vision: zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. So that is our North Star. It really focuses our mind both from a technology engineering perspective, but also from a business perspective every single day. From an EV perspective, we do believe that we are at an inflection point. Why? Because we're at a stage where there's a convergence of technologies. The convergence of technologies is not just EV, electric vehicles, but also autonomous vehicles and the connectivity that makes that all happen as well. So when you start looking at adoption, adoption absolutely will be on a country by country basis, not necessarily on a region by region basis. So you need to be looking at what are those key issues of adoption. One of the things that you may well have heard, certainly from CES in January, is that we're all in, from an EV perspective. We literally want to put everybody into an electric vehicle. So that means choice. One of the challenges has been in the past when looking at electric vehicles, the form factor tended to be relatively small. And so if you start to look at our announcements from January, you'll start to see many different types of vehicles. weighted towards a vehicle that stands a bit higher on the road, so crossovers and SUVs. But there's really no reason why any vehicle that you would see here, suddenly I'm calling in from the Middle East perspective, that we couldn't electrify. So we're talking SUVs, we're talking pickups, we're talking different types of crossovers. So I think from a point of view of EV adoption, choice is really a big factor of that. In addition to that, we need to break down the roadblocks, and some of those roadblocks relate to range and the performance of the vehicle in that respect, and of course charging availability and performance as well. So those are the things that, again, we are very focused in building out part of our zero mission. So if we can fix that, as General Motors and our partners within the ecosystem that we have, I think we're going to go a long way to helping the adoption, certainly here in the Middle East and the markets that we play in.
No, and certainly what we've been looking a lot at McKinsey and Company is, the good news is we're seeing an explosion of new model entries, and every single year range is increasing steadily. So a lot of good news coming from that perspective. Peter, maybe I'll pivot to you for a moment. As we think about some of those barriers that Gary talked about, and your company, CVT, is really pushing the boundaries of advanced EV platform design and doing exciting things with Lynk & Co and others. What's your view currently on the unlocks that we need in technology or infrastructure or government policy to kind of pull the future forward by 5 years? Or what do you see as the opportunities in just technology design, platform design currently?
I think technology-wise, making the vehicles is not a big challenge for the OEMs. It's more to make it affordable for a lot of users, and it's been done with help of subsidies for quite a while now, and we really need to increase the models, but we see that it's happening now globally. I think in just a few years there will be a lot of different models for different customers, so that will just happen. Then I guess the infrastructure is really what we need to walk hand in hand with all this volume increase, and I totally agree with Gary. It will not be a global common, it will be a nation by nation solution here.
And Ofer, I want to pivot to you for a moment as well, and then we'll kick it into maybe more open dialogue here. Your company, EVR Motors, is really pushing the envelope on density and size of motors, and really doing some exciting thing, packaging high power, electric power plants, and for use in a broad range of vehicles. And so we'd love to get your view on the role of, other technology. We talk a lot about battery, but what role does motor innovation have to play? And also maybe you can talk a little bit about, we think about the EV trend often first as a passenger car trend, but really this is something that's taking on two-wheel vehicles, commercial vehicles, off-highway vehicles, large and small. So any thoughts you can share there would be great.
I think one of the trends that we're trying to work on, and many of the manufacturers are working on, is actually making the vehicle part of it disappear. Why do you have that big thing in the front with a big motor and gear and everything else, and you have to have that boot in the back because you need the gas tank there? Make it disappear. Just have a place to put whatever you want, whether it's people comfortably or a lot of whatever you're carrying around, a lot of cargo, or to have as many people on a small bike as you can and go fast. So I think this is probably one of the main trends that's going to happen in platforms, is we'll see things getting smaller, being able to tuck them away in different places, and suddenly the designers of the car are going to have so much more flexibility in making the cars look different, live different, If you add autonomous and everything else onto that, it's an even bigger wow. But even if we just leave it at electrification, the cars are going to look very different. They're suddenly going to be more comfortable, more user-friendly. And what we're doing is our part in the motor, and making that, half size. We'll probably go further as we go along, and sort of disappear. Who wants to see a motor in a car?
No, I think there's a huge amount of excitement in the ability and the freedom that designers now have and engineers now have to really rethink the structural design of the car in ways that we probably haven't thought about in 50 or 100 years. And we're at least it's our belief that we're probably only in the early stages of that, as you said, as things get smaller and you can move your packaging constraints down and out and to the sides. And I think it's going to be a really exciting set of concept vehicles out in the next couple of years, and then actual vehicles on the road. So fully agree. Maybe pivoting to some thorny problems, shall we say, for the industry. So we've been talking about the exciting aspect of things are coming, new models, technology solutions that are innovative, allowing different design, but cost is still a paramount challenge, and profitability as a byproduct for the industry, which is I think you could argue been holding the industry back to some degree as well. If you're going to produce an electric vehicle and make very little margin or negative margin, your incentive is a bit lower outside of regulation to push that forward. But any bright spots, things that you're seeing to give the industry hope, or things that frankly have to change in the value chain of the ecosystem to make everyone more sustainable from a profitability perspective? I'll let anyone jump in that would like.
Maybe I could just jump in to offer some thoughts, Patrick, if I can. I think scale is important, right? When you start looking at the amount of internal combustion engines there are in the world, over 1 billion internal combustion engines, and you start looking at EVs, we're selling more and more EVs for sure every single year, and some markets are crossing that zone in selling more EVs and internal combustion engines. Norway is an example. But from a point of view of manufacturing and engineering and designing, I think we believe scale obviously is going to help. When you start looking at design and technology, we announced back in January our new Ultium battery platform, and we designed that to be versatile. So we heard Ofer talking about designers. Once you take away that engine, the designers and the engineers can do some really great fun things with that. It doesn't necessarily need to be on 4 wheels. It could be on 2. It doesn't necessarily need to have any wheels. It could equally be something for air transportation as well. So from a General Motors perspective, we were looking holistically as to, okay, how can we electrify and what can we use this platform for? So that's one of the ways that we at General Motors are actually looking at building scale. That scale will help in terms of reducing that price point, because when you look at the build costs of a particular vehicle, when it's electric, the majority of that cost is in the battery. Mm-hmm. So with this first generation Ultium that's going to be going into vehicles like the Hummer as an example, we reduced that pricing by about 40%. The generation 2 that we're working on, again, by 60%. So at some point within now and maybe to the end of the decade, you'll start to see better price parity. So that helps from a manufacturing point of view. I think also this convergence of technology is really important because it allows us to get into new revenue stream, the revenue pools that we've never been in. Our AVs or autonomous vehicles will be electric. And so when you start to look at the connected vehicle and what then you can do with that, we can start to build out different types of subscriptions. Just think how your smartphone has really changed the way we interact with everything. And what we're starting to do is put that connectivity into vehicles which are electric, which will be at some point fully autonomous as well. I think that's where the industry is going, and that's where the bright spots are at this moment in time.
Over Peter, anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I was also thinking when you were speaking, Gary, we're also looking at different type of customers. We're used to the private ones that that they pick a color and they pick a certain spec, and we're now looking at what if people would share their rides? How will that work? And we're starting to test that in Europe now with Lynk & Co. You can actually earn money on your car if a lot of friends want to use it and so on. We're also looking at different type of customers and what type of values can we add while you are using your vehicles that is valuable enough for you to pick that type of service. Then I guess technology cost will also be reduced as we see more standardized. You get more volume out of some components. When the EV is coming in the early stage, it's often quite expensive products and very high speed, and we also need to think about how can we make it fulfill the needs, not maybe only the wants, to find a more sustainable way into the future.
I think we're going to see cost reductions across the board of the components, obviously, as production picks up and technology sort of starts figuring out what's right. But I think we're also going to see changes in what is today the main cost driver, which is the requirements for long range. And as there's higher and higher adoption of electric vehicles, the second car in the family, no one's going to care about the range. Why do you need 500-kilometer range on your second car? 150, 200 is enough, and then the price is going to start plummeting on those as well. So I think that'll hasten the adoption as we go along, together with better charging infrastructure, and that'll bring the prices down. So it's not just the volumes, but it's the requirements that will start going down.
And you both, or all three of you, mentioned in different ways and picked up on different things that we're talking about a change in the architecture, a change in the way the vehicle moves itself. But what about the potential for different business models, or what's the feeling on where different business models will have the biggest amount of profit potential? Any feeling from any of the three of you, or things you're excited about?
Well, autonomous vehicles, Patrick, that will definitely create a totally new, a lot of opportunities. So I think that is the most exciting change in technology, enabling a lot of new types of business. But electric, I would say energy, the energy area, how to you have a big battery, as you Ofer said, in your vehicle, and if it's too big, maybe you can use it for other purposes, and maybe you can right sizes if you really know what customer or market you're after. And I agree, sometimes we are have too much anxiety about the range. If infrastructure and the speed of charging is rising, I think we'll see that we can use smaller batteries in the vehicles.
Yeah, and just building on that, I think what's also fascinating is how quickly, I don't know if the three of you agree, but at least for us, how quickly the conversation is shifting around the full end-to-end sustainability. So we moved a bit beyond the idea that we need electric cars or electric vehicles of various types, and two-wheel, four-wheel, bus, truck, et cetera, to attack our climate problem. And we moved all, in addition to where is the energy coming from, and the grid to vehicle, and then upstream ahead of the grid. And I think what's really interesting too, in just presenting at this conference, EcoMotion Week, and also thinking about what's happening later this year at COP26, which will be hosted here in the UK, is really how we think about that end-to-end stream that you described, Peter. How do we think about differently, and the opportunities to go from sustainable sources of electricity, potentially some kind of stationary storage in between if needed, and how that all interfaces with charging infrastructure and other aspects. Curious if any of you have any views on opportunities there or challenges there. There's always a bit of this chicken and egg question for infrastructure.
Maybe if I can give a view. I'm here in the Middle East. I'm talking from Dubai, and General Motors see a good opportunity in electrification here in the region. And a few years back, you might sort of say, why might that be? You're in the middle of countries that gain most of their GDP from oil in one way or another. What I would say is I've been here for 5 years and been traveling back and forth. The key thing would be look at some of the projects that the countries are looking and investing in. The UAE has identified that by sort of 2040, late 2040, a good 40% plus of their energy will be sustainable. It has some of the largest solar arrays in the world. If you look at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with NEOM, this is a $500 billion smart city that is going to be fully sustainable. It's going to be fully electric, fully autonomous. So these are some key projects that are going to be leading the way, not just in isolation, but will be leading the way, for the rest of the country and the rest of the region. So it will take time, for sure. It will take time. Like adoption will take time. Behavior will need to change with our customers, but certainly we are seeing that change happening. And as and when it starts to make an impact, we can truly turn around and say, from an end-to-end perspective, we do have sustainable transportation.
Maybe I'll pivot us to another topic that's quite hot these days, whether it's you look at it from the SPAC investment trend, or whether you just look at the general excitement that we're seeing around different newer startups, newer players to the game that are trying to really disrupt this market. And so whether we think about players in the passenger car space or even players in commercial vehicles or Arrival, Volta trucks, et cetera, across Europe, what is your view on the role that they have to play? And obviously, Gary, these are competitors to you, but Peter and Ofer, you may see these as potential customers or new exciting partners for you. But how are these players changing the landscape or interfacing or any perspectives on the newer kids on the block?
Well, I think it's an amazing opportunity because it would have been impossible to invent a new motor, a new battery, a new anything almost, and come to these giants. They're scary. You can't come to them as a startup 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But now, suddenly there's tremendous added value to the group of people running around and doing new things, and everyone's chasing the new companies. And it's absolutely amazing to be in that position. Now, what will come out of it in the end? There will be tremendous consolidation. They'll all be swallowed up, and they'll all get into be part of the big guy, which is actually what they want, because that's what startups want. They want a few of them want to become really big companies, and most of them want to get a nice exit and to bring their technology to market. And what better way to bring market to technology than have Geely or GM pick it up and use it as their main technology? So great. So it's a win-win situation, and I think the big guys are latching onto it. I can see that as one of the small guys. There's tremendous interest, both from the technology scouts, but also from the business units that are doing the development. The guys who are usually world champions and not invented here. We don't want you. We do better stuff than you do. They're suddenly coming to ask questions and listen. And this is across the board in all of the novelties in the automobile industry. So tremendous opportunities for both sides to run forward with technology, and the car 10 years from now is not going to look like it looks today, and we don't even know how. It's amazing. It's a great time to be here.
Totally agree.
Maybe if I could just add a point to that, because I completely agree, Ofer. If you think about General Motors and you think about our advanced tech center, General Motors saw a big opportunity in putting an advanced tech center in Israel to connect with the startup nation. That was many years ago. We employ over 500 people today. That team, they focus on what we're talking about today. They focus on connected technologies, autonomous technology, and electric technologies as well. So we're tapping into and have tapped into that startup knowledge. As Ofer mentioned, having these technologies of convergence brings many opportunities. I don't necessarily see this as competition. I see this as potential partnership, and there's plenty room for innovation. These technologies will change, as Ofer said, it will absolutely change the relationship that we currently have with our vehicle. We'll be changing new customer experiences, evolving those user experiences, plus all the technologies that we've talked about so far in this conversation. So there's a lot of great knowledge that we're tapping into, and I agree. It's a really great time, an exciting time to be in the industry.
Yeah,
I think go ahead, Peter.
I just wanted to say that the innovation, it really happens when you meet these startups together with some old experts, and you get this team going. Then you can really pick up on some new technology, and you understand maybe your legacy and how you need to tweak it to make it work. So that's really the way to go.
I think a lot of our audience today watching this will be quite excited to hear that all three of you are open to engaging with new startups, and given the makeup of the attendees here, which is exciting.
Definitely, the giants want to be like startups, and the startups want to be giants. So it's
And perhaps just thinking about another trend, which is in the commercial vehicle space, we hear a lot now, not just about cars. We hear about GM's doing big things in BrightDrop. There's a range of different plays happening, from small vans, two-wheel vehicles, but also mid-sized vehicles, especially, and some talk in the heavy truck side as well. Some challenges there maybe to solve. Might be hydrogen, might be battery electric solutions on the horizon. But thoughts about the opportunities in that space, and could we actually see a world where commercial vehicles, while they're starting a bit later, coming a bit later to the party, actually move faster because they're more economics driven than consumer driven?
Maybe if I can jump in, as you mentioned, BrightDrop, you're exactly right. In the conversation, we tend to start talking about the retail customer, but we can't forget about the business customer as well. And we launched BrightDrop back in January. So BrightDrop is an end-to-end solution for e-commerce courier companies. Think FedEx as an example. So on one hand, it is like commercial vehicle, fully electric, but it also develop technologies and software to help with that courier business and delivery business. So, again, that we talked about entering into different revenue pools or opening up different revenue pools. So this is one area whereby bringing all the technologies together, having the convergence of technologies, as I mentioned, enables us to deliver a service. It's not just a product. And therefore, we can look at monetizing that and entering different revenue streams going forward. So that's just one area. There are many other areas that our innovation teams are are working on. But we need to, as an industry, we need to look at the whole spectrum of opportunity. And that could even include vertical takeoff and landing in the future. So yeah, literally the sky's the limit.
Love it. And over maybe also on the other end of the spectrum, the smaller vehicle, your motor design's very dense, very small. You can think of a lot of applications, two-wheel vehicles, scooters, things like this. I mean, on some level, there's a bit of an open question as to why, the world needs any more petrol scooters past a certain point. And I think the exciting thing around battery swapping and some standardization happening there, this is really where we're seeing the innovation come from Asia and now spread across the world and really challenge some of the incumbents. But just curious on your view there.
They won't exist in 5 years. You'd be hard pressed to buy a petrol scooter, definitely in Asia, but probably in the rest of the world in a few years' time. There's no good reason for them to exist. And that market is exploding right now. And as the motors get better, the batteries get better, the swapping infrastructure gets better. Why on earth would someone want those noisy, smelly things that you have to stop and pump gas into? They're going to go away. And it's the best place, it's the best starting place for wide-scale electrification, because for almost all of it, it gets around most of the big problems of range, etc. It's small enough and cheap enough. And the costs are way down there. So it's fantastic. We started out developing the motor for two-wheelers. And in fact, it was so much more powerful than we imagined. And now we're having to downscale it even more to actually go for the scooter market. So we started out aiming for the scooters. We ended up at around the 250cc level. And now we're designing a new version that will go in for what the scooters want. And that the same thing is happening with the guys with the batteries. And then they've got all the controls and the connectivity on them. And it's a different world. And if you want a really, really scary experience, go try to cross the street in Shanghai in the evening after dark. You don't hear them because they're all electric, and you don't see them because they don't run their lights because it takes up their battery. And it's suicide. And it's going to hit the rest of the world very, very fast. Rome, it's going to look different in 5 years' time.
Not the danger part. Hopefully we'll solve that issue. But I take your point around the excitement, and I think we share that view that on the smaller end of the spectrum, this could be very, very fast, which is I think quite exciting. And you're not limited by infrastructure nearly as much, although you may still need some battery swapping infrastructure and stations to be built out.
Patrick, may I ask Oprah a question regarding electric motors? You can spend some more on the electric motor, and you can get some higher efficiency, and you get the payback in reducing your battery size, for example. So do you see that when companies approach you, that they rather like the premium motor than the less costly motor, or what do you see?
It all depends. Some say give me an extra % of efficiency. The other guy say another $1, go away. And the nice thing about it is the development costs for different versions are so much lower than they are in internal combustion. So I've got the same motor with different variants. I put on different coils and different magnets, and the same size, the same casing, same everything. I've got a slightly different casing for water cooling. I've got a range of 5 or 6 different motors with 90% commonality between them. So development costs go down, manufacturing costs go down, and that's possible in electric, very difficult in ICE. So now you can suddenly have a whole range. And then the guy says, okay, so maybe I can have a range of scooters I'm selling to people. It costs me almost the same, but I can take price premiums in some and get the quantities on the others. So it gives a lot of flexibility because the technology is so much.
I sense that we're getting short on time, but let me ask. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask one more question, because as we think about the outlook for the industry or the history of the industry, as goes the battery, to some degree goes this vehicle trend. And what is your general view on the outlook for disruptions in the battery space? There's a lot of excitement, a lot of funding, billions of dollars going into solid state, lithium, sulfur, other new chemistries that promise exciting performance and density and cost and charging time. And it's exciting to envision a future where a vehicle could go 500 plus kilometers and charge in minutes, and do so at the same cost that we have vehicles today or better. So I think we all hope we get to that place. What are your views, gentlemen, on how soon we're there, how exciting these technologies are, and maybe how to navigate the hype from the reality.
I can start. So I feel that the energy and the battery area is what will change most. If you compare to maybe electric machines, it will not maybe change so much as the battery. But also, I don't see any huge revolution here, like a dramatic change within a few years. It will be slowly improve pricing and improve, steady, but not so quick. So I think we need to, sort out infrastructure, or really enable more people to have an electric vehicle by having a better infrastructure. I think that is the short-term solution.
If I could offer some view, with the General Motors Ultium battery platform, we're going to be able to get 450 miles in some of those configurations. And of course, it's built to be versatile and flexible to go into everything from SUV to pickup trucks and commercial vehicles as well. And so to Ofer's point earlier on, when you start getting into first cars and then second cars, you need to have a versatile battery pack. So I think the technology that is here that really does remove that range anxiety. I'd agree with Peter that to really drive this adoption, it's more a focus of looking at charging capabilities and making sure that they're in the right places and are flexible as well. So that's going to be really key, along with government incentives on a country by country basis to move this forward. So it's not just about the technology part of it. I think we need to look at this whole ecosystem, as we were talking about right at the beginning, to drive this forward. Yes, there are continuing developments and innovations, but I personally believe it's going to be more incremental, certainly over the next few years. So the focus has got to be on the entire ecosystem.
I beg to differ. I think we've got the three main elements required for revolution in batteries. One, there's a tremendous amount of brain power and money being poured into new battery architectures, materials, design, everything. Number two, it's a big problem. The batteries today are the main cost drivers and size drivers and everything else. So all the manufacturers would love the batteries to be half the size and half the cost. And number three, we've only got about 5% of the vehicles today being electric. So we've got to ramp up production from 5% to, 50%, 80%, 100% in 10 years of vehicles. So that's huge ramp up in manufacturing capability. So you don't have to throw out the old stuff. You have to put in new factories for the new technology. So I don't know which technology it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to come by in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, but I am willing to wager that in 5 to 10 years, we're going to have very different battery technology, and it's going to ramp up much, much faster than we think.
Well, we'll end on an inspirational note. Ofer, thank you for that. And I want to thank all of the panelists, Gary, Peter as well. It's been a great discussion, and I suspect we could talk for another 2 hours or more. And I hope that for those of you joining for EcoMotion Week 2021, you have a great week. Engage with lots of companies. We have lots of discussions about the interface of startups and existing players, disruption, and ultimately solving some of the world's most challenging problems. So for myself, Patrick at McKinsey & Company, and for the entire group here, I want to thank all of you for your time and for the great dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Have a great week.
you.